Hello! Today I'm going to share with you my super simple sourdough recipe. It's simply delicious. It has lots of air pockets and nice and crusty, and it is my everyday bread. I just make it often. And I think you're going to love it. You won't need a banneton, you won't need a Dutch oven, and you're going to be really surprised at how I form this loaf. So come and watch, and let's begin. So your sourdough starter should be very well activated with lots of air bubbles in it, indicating that the yeast is really dividing well. Then add your water and measure out half cup of the sourdough starter. Now, if you want to know more about sourdough starters, just look at the description box on this video and it'll direct you to my website where you can read about how to make your own sourdough starter. Then you add your salt and you start to blend it all together until it's well dissolved. Then it's time to add the flour. You can use some whole wheat flour if you'd like also, but then add a touch more water to the recipe if you do. Then stir it all up until everything is moistened. And then we're going to autolyze it. Which means we're going to let it stand and rest for about 15 minutes while the gluten starts activating and making a nice structure. Then just wait for 15 minutes. And then it's time to knead. What you want to do is stretch and align the gluten fibers by pushing mostly in one direction. The dome does this great. I really recommend using it. And you just do it about maybe 20 different strokes, and then collect it all into the center of the bowl. And you want to cover it with plastic wrap so it doesn't form a skin, because it's going to proof for a long time. Now, sourdough takes a little bit of time to proof, especially in colder temperatures. Now, if your house is 72 degrees, it will take about 10 hours to proof. So it's possible to prep it in the morning, and then 10 hours later in the evening, you can bake it. But if your house is a lot colder, it usually works better to prep it in the evening and let it proof overnight, because sometimes it can take 15 hours if your house temperature goes down at night. The good thing about this recipe is you can double it, and since you don't need to use a banneton or a Dutch oven to bake it, you can bake 2 loaves at once, so maybe that's a week's supply. But on the screen there's a handy timing chart to help you figure out your best schedule for making sourdough bread. I'll use this guide to figure out how long it's going to take to proof your bread. And while the bread is proofing at some point, you want to take care of your sourdough starter. I like to keep it in the refrigerator at a 1-to-1 ratio. So here I'm adding a 1/4 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of water, and then going to refrigerate it. Now it's time to stretch and fold. You want to do 3 total stretch and folds during the time that the bread is proofing, and it can be done pretty much any time, but space it out so at least there's 45 minutes in between each of the stretch and folds. So to do this, you get under a section of dough and stretch it out and fold it over itself. And just keep going around in a circle, stretching and folding it over on top of itself until you've done all the way around in a circle. And then scrape the bowl to get all of the dough, and then keep it in the center of the bowl to proof some more until it's time that you want to stretch and fold it again. So remember, do it a total of 3 times during the proofing. And here is our proofed dough, ready to be formed into a loaf. At this point, preheat your oven. And here I'm going to show you how to very simply form the loaf in the gap between these 3 boxes of wraps. Use some parchment paper to put underneath the dough. and scrape it into the gap. You can smooth it out a bit if you want. Just have some wet hands. And you can give it a little scoring before putting into the oven. And then, since your oven is already preheated, you can bake it. Make sure you trim the paper first, then remove the boxes and bake for 35 minutes. And then take it out. And it's not the most presentable looking loaf, but it is delicious and the slices are gonna look great. So there you have it. It was so easy. Now, if you prefer to have the loaf look a little bit better, you can actually let the dough rest and puff out a little bit before baking it. So this loaf is a slightly better looking loaf. And it also has a little whole wheat flour in it. So there it is. Also, great looking slices are going to be made from that loaf. Well, thanks for watching. Now, if you want to make a more polished looking loaf, you can watch my other video on sourdough bread making, which shows 3 different ways to shape a loaf and to make a little more presentable looking loaf, especially if you're having guests. And also watch my other videos on this channel to learn all about baking bread, cookies, and lots of great treats. Bye.